Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So, a bunch of epic stuff happened yesterday. Today is Liberation Day, April 2nd, and things that you wouldn't even think are epic or epic. There was, I turned on the news and they were covering this election of a Supreme Court justice in Wisconsin like it was the national election. Both CNN and MSNBC were amped up. I got Rachel Maddows and the Hammer guy, like, basically, um, ejaculate. Like, just they're freaking, uh, they're so psyched about this election. Cory Booker did a marathon record over 24-hour speech, which was somehow kind of hilarious. Plus, Val Kilmer died. And I was watching, basketball last night. Stephen Curry scored 52 in sort of an epic win against the Memphis Grizzlies, who just fired their coach. There was like this. There's a lot of contentious. There was a brawl in the NBA, kind of like a wrestling match. They don't throw punches anymore, but there's just all these things. And then Nikola Jokic scored over 60 in an overtime loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I watched the end of that game. And things just seem way more intense, but also fake. So I want to start here. Like, everything is being done in a way. This thing happened with this. Well, let's show you this woman here, right?
If I told you that masked secret police were caught on camera kidnapping a college student for her political views, you'd probably think that it was happening in some foreign country run by a dictator. But this was the scene on Tuesday.
So there's going to show you a picture of this woman, and she's coming out. She has a lawyer now. Lawyer speaking for her. It's fake. Like, it's just, the same thing. Like, there's something, sometimes you just see something, you go, oh, that's fake. Or at least I do. I saw it with Trump's assassination attempt. It's just something, you see it and you know it. Like, you look at it, you go, this is fake. There's just, you can see it in TV shows and see it in news when something's staged. It's just a little bit too contrived. It's a little bit too scripted. But for me, it was a picture. I'll show you this picture in a moment. And so if this is fake, then everything's fake. Like, everything that Trump's doing. Now, Trump probably doesn't know because he's too stupid and he has to be, he gets managed and handled, and he's not thorough. I don't think he's that good of an actor. I don't know how much these people know that are Trumpers. I think they're all kind of stupid and are being propped up. I don't know, right? The cult of Trump, his people, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't know who knows what. But, like, this is all a show. Like, it's, where I thought maybe some of this was more organic or some of it was just happening. Like, Trump is being handled. These things are being done. Like, he's not really in charge of any of this agenda. And he's just being used as a scapegoat for the collapse of the system. This thing was obviously done right in front of a camera, right? Like, so this is like the view of this woman being harassed by these guys who don't come and identify themselves as cops, right? So, it's an outrageous thing to see, and I'm sure that Mossad and Israel's at least partially behind all this agenda to create chaos. Let's watch it here.
Day night, not in a foreign country, right here in America. In fact, in Massachusetts, the birthplace of the American Revolution. That is where a Tufts University PhD student and a Fulbright scholar was abducted. Ramaisa Ozturk had just left her apartment.
I mean, just the black. They don't have to all wear black, right? And masks. I mean, it's just to send an image. Like, what does it say to you when these thugs dressed in black come up and harass a woman? She's dressed in white, has a white coat, and this, these head coverings. I mean, it's for all people. It's this idea of a religious person, right? This, these things that, and conservative person who's, whatever, and just minding their own business. And these guys in black all come up with masks, like it's some kind of anarchist, like secret police type of bullshit. And it's just it right in front of the camera. I mean, like, it looks staged already. Like, it was kind of, something off about it. And, like, it's outrageous to think that this is what's happening. They're showing you they're going to bring in martial law, right? They're making this acceptable to you.
To attend a dinner, breaking her Ramadan.
Whether you like it or not, it's making you acceptable. Like, it doesn't matter whether you think it's good or bad. You're just like, oh, this is what we're doing now. Like, it's just, you start seeing it, and then, this is what they did when they, the way they amped up airport security. And so they had this guy called the shoe bomber. We had the big event, right, that happened. And so they wanted to get you to go through security at the airport to get people, patting you down, right? So now every people go to the airport, and these are the, people who are doing well, like people who are more, higher up in the economic, educated people that might tend to fight back and might have more, like say over things like these types of behaviors. Say they donate politically. They get you to go through the airport and, go through these various invasive procedures. And then they were rolling it out at malls for a while. Remember, they were patting people down at malls. So it started with the shoe bomber. And so then they get you to take your shoes off, right? What happened? Then there was that event that happened in England where there was like, it was like July, I think it was on my birthday, July 7th. It was like a whole thing they did. It was like, it was sometime in July, and there was 24 different people who had explosives in their bags, and they caught all of them. Not one thing happened. But after that, they started to go through your bags, even though it happened in England, right? These terrorists, these, whatever they are, actors, whatever they're, agents. So they go in, and now they're going through your bags. So first they get your shoes off. Now you're going through your bags. They're looking through your bags, or it's invasive, right? More and more invasive. This is grooming, right? And then we had the underwear bomber. Some guy put a bomb in his underwear. And so now they have the naked body scanners, which they had already ordered, right? So the naked body scanners were already being built and ordered for these airports. And then they have an event that makes them, your use makes sense. And so they have an event, and now you do the underwear stand. They're radiating you and taking these pictures of you, and the pat downs and all the things, right? So they have these things that they want to get these invasive procedures. Now you don't like it, but you go through it, and then you're like, all right, this is what we do now, right? You have somebody grabbing your crotch at the airport, like it's a way that they groom you into accepting something, and they're grooming you for martial law here and other things. And so, but all of it, like this whole chaos with Trump and all of it. And then it's going to, the whole censorship's going to kick in.
On fast, when all of a sudden she was approached by a guy in a dark hoodie and a hat who then grabs her hands, and you can see and hear how upset and scared she was as an officer finally pulls out a badge and appears to identify himself as law enforcement. Within seconds, she is surrounded by half a dozen cops, all in street clothes, and all
this kind of overkill, right?
All covering their faces with masks. They take her cell phone, physically remove her backpack. And her crime, you'd think that this was somebody really wanted by the government, someone dangerous, but her crime appears to be co-authoring an op-ed in the school newspaper back in 2024. The piece cites Tufts University's 1989 decision to divest from apartheid South Africa as part of an international boycott against that racist regime. She calls on the university to divest in the modern era from Israel due to the International Court of Justice finding Israel plausibly committing genocide. And for that opinion, for that...
Boom. When I saw this right here, I'm like, this is a headshot. Like, this is what they're rolling out, right? This is a headshot. Like, that's a crisis actor, right? Then I saw this, I'm like, oh, it's fake. This is the shot they're putting out there, right? With her, posing here and all this stuff. Like, they just, like, this is like, they used her headshot, right? This is, this is like, it's completely contrived. And so, all of it, like, it just looks fake. It looks like WWE. It looks like, all the stuff with Trump. And it's, smack dab in the middle of this controversy with Israel and Mossad and all of that. Well, Trump is, Trump's completely run and owned by Israel amongst, these other financial institutions. And so they just tell him what to do, and he does it. Or they make you think it's his idea. Whatever they do to manipulate him, he's easily manipulated. And they push this agenda, and they're doing it right in front of you. I mean, they're rolling out martial law and just this kind of Gestapo-like, tactics and things. Guys all dressed in black harassing this, woman who looks sort of almost like a, a model with the glass, this kind of thing, right? And they got the one with the bone structure and these things to make it just for writing a little op-ed.
That op-ed, Öztürk was essentially kidnapped off the street. She was sent to a detention center in Louisiana.
See, look, another pose. Like, this is her pose. Like, her hand on her side of her face. That's a Freemasonic symbol. Like, they have that. Tom Cruise did it in Eyes Wide Shut. Like, when he was being dressed down by Sidney Pollack in the pool room at the end of the movie, and he said, that you just got to accept this girl had died and all these things. And Sidney Pollack is basically threatening him. And it's a submissive pose. Tom Cruise keeps his hand on his face. Let me show you that really quickly here. There's this weird demonic sex party scene. Very disturbing. The whole movie's very disturbing. And it was one of the first truther things. There's some guy who's now dead who was, he knew about all the symbolism. I know about some of it, but there's people who are, experts in this thing. And this guy was, he went to a party and the people had just watched the movie and he explained everything to them. And they said, oh, you got to make a video about this. And he did. And I don't know if that still exists. But he talked about all the things in the movie. They went through and documented even the little smallest, the under the rainbow place. There's all these, it's all this symbolism. And so he's given this newspaper article. This woman who he treated, who's just like some kind of high-class hooker/model, who saved his life in the party, vouched for him, ends up dead. And he's trying to reconcile it. And this guy's like, you want to ruin your life, basically threatening him. And so Tom Cruise gets up here. He puts his hand on the side of his face. Very weird gesture. And you see here, took the volume off. He stands up with his hand on the side of his face. And this is a submissive gesture. It's a Freemasonic, weird gesture. Why would he do that? Like, why would anybody do that? His hand's on the side of his face, and it's on there for an extended period of time, right? As he's being dressed down here. And so they have these things that are symbols. This is, the other thing is Aleister Crowley. So Aleister Crowley, the most wicked man in the world, this cultist in England. And this thing, he's got his hands on the side of his face here. All these things mean something. He has a whole book of gestures and handshakes and things. And, Trump always does that water sign where he holds his hands in a triangle pointed downwards. Then I've showed you that before. Like, that's all that means something, right? It's a communication to these people who have this, access to this information, what it means to them. And this woman has it, this is what she's doing. So she has her hand on the side of her face. And so here's the picture here, the early one, right? And the other side here. Like, this is her pose. She's got this smile, but it's like a an Amish woman's smile, the religious woman, conservative, not, too self-expressive, closed mouth. But, there's light in her eyes, right? This is a pose, right? Like, this is, this is a pose she's striking a couple of times here, right? So this is, we're doing it again, right? This little sort of, conservative smile, whatever. This is her headshot. Like, this is an actress fucking, so.
Now hoping to deport her out of the country. If it sounds familiar, it is. In fact, it is a similar story to that of Mahmoud Khalil of Columbia University. And it
What's his name?
happened to a number of other foreign students across the country, again, with no evidence made to the public. The Department of Homeland Security is accusing her of engaging in activities in support of Hamas. You know what? Her op-ed didn't even mention Hamas.
Hamas. This guy knows, he's in on it. He knows how to say the words, right? Like, Hamas, not Hamas, it's Hamas.
While DHS carries out the abductions.
See, you're going to do something like this, you're going to want actors. You're going to want people you control their storylines, right? Something this controlled, this explosive, this woman in white being accosted by big men, small women in white being accosted by big men in black and, just grabbing her off the street, especially for, liberals. I mean, people who are, maybe conservative and anti-Muslim or whatever, it's not such a big deal. But like for liberals and people like this and this woman, what she represents, this targeted group and things, you're going to want actors. You want to control the victim consciousness here. They're generating victim consciousness. They want to control that.
It is the Secretary of State who's officially making the call on who and why these students are abducted off of the streets and tried to be deported. This was how Marco Rubio explained his abduction on Tuesday.
Oh, we revoked her visa. It's an F1 visa, I believe. We revoked it, and here's why. If you apply for a visa to enter the United States and be a student, and you tell us that the reason why you're coming to the United States is not just because you want to write op-eds, but because you want to participate in movements that are involved in doing things like vandalizing universities, harassing students, taking over buildings, creating a ruckus, we're not going to give you a visa. If you lie to us and get a visa and then enter the United States.
You know, it's just a total twerp, right? Like just coming off like a, you got to see it how liberals see it. You know, this, who is this being targeted at, right? And so Joe Rogan is speaking out against this, and MSNBC has Joe Rogan on, which I'll show you in a moment, on multiple shows. Like they all of a sudden taking what he says seriously, right? Because he's, disagreeing with Trump's policies. They're creating outrage here, and they're creating fear, and this is, but they're also introducing you to the future, right? Because they've been wanting to do this for a while. Like they were on the right track to do this with the airport security. They're starting to roll out the airport security in other places, where they have to show your papers, and you get pat down, and you live in this fear of like these people, going through the TSA and all getting groped and shit like that, right there, and all the stories about that. Alex Jones was a big guy promoting that. Like he was pretending he was feigning outrage, but he was showing you and getting you ready for all the things that were going to happen. It's just like this fake stuff that's happened so that they can, they sell it to you, and then you see it and you imitate it, and you knuckle under because they're like, all right, this is what you got to submit to. This is your new deal. We get to do this to you now, but you still get to keep your internet and your food and your car and shit, whatever it is. But then they take that away. So it's just, there's a grooming process going on here, right? Grooming is, more and more invasive type of stuff, right? More aggressive things. Like they desensitize you to having your personal space invaded, in terms of a sexual abuse. Each thing is more and more, invasive, like things that are, that are just socially unacceptable. And they start off with limited, with small things, and then they move towards the bigger offense, right? That's what grooming is. And so they start off, taking off your shoes isn't a big deal, but next thing you know, they're grabbing your crotch, right, at the airport. And so, it's more and more invasive type of, things that are pushed on you, and you accept the smaller things, and then they can just unroll the bigger things. Okay, so I got a lot of things going on. So I started making this video. I was working on this like at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm refinishing a tub. I'm concerned that the tub that I use is leaching possible lead. I don't know. So it's I'll try to cover it maybe in my next video. I'm so wiped out. The job went sideways, which it often does, not just for me but other people, everybody. So I want to talk about that as a phenomenon. And that kind of wiped me out. And there's just so many things going on. I wanted to get back to this video. I'm going to have to probably put it together and complete it tomorrow, but I want to make some of the points that I might forget after going to sleep tonight. And so, it's like 8 o'clock now or whatever. But let's get through this here.
States, and with that visa participate in that sort of activity, we're going to take away your visa.
And to be clear, there's absolutely no evidence that this young woman...
Again, this is a headshot. Like her agent, like this.
...has engaged in any of the activity that Marco Rubio has just talked about. She has not been charged with any crime from the Department of Justice or any prosecutors. Keep in mind that Republicans have been pretending throughout all of this to be the champions of free speech in America for the past few years. In fact, this was Marco Rubio at CPAC back in 2022.
There's now a speech code, right? Every single person in this room and the overwhelming majority of people that you know are one word away. It doesn't matter if you're 13 years old when you said it. You're one word, you're one statement, you're one retweet, you're one like away from destroying your life. There are kids in America that have had their admissions to a college revoked. There are now certain things that you're not allowed to say on a college campus.
Wow.
All right, so they're giving it to him good there. But, you know, this is what I was saying. They pretend that they agree with you because freedom of speech has to be across the board. It can't be just the people that agree with you, right? Like you and your people have freedom of speech, but the other people don't. And, of course, this is to do with Israel. You know, they often say, learn who you can't criticize, and that's who your owner is, right? Or whatever, your handler or whatever it is. And so, you know, this stuff happening with Israel and all the rest of it. But I think it's more, like I said, these are training videos to get you to accept things that you can't change. They're like, this is the big fuck you. This is them saying fuck you to you, Trump and the rest of them. And the more disgruntled you get, because I'm going to show you Joe Biden, them, you know, all of a sudden they love Joe Rogan because he's critical of this stuff with the deporting people. But it's them saying that we have a different set of rules than you do, and we're going to lie to you or, you know, tell you where you're on your side and pretend this stuff and then screw you over later. There's nothing you can do about it, kind of thing. Not just with Trump, but across the board. Let's keep on going here a little bit.
But beyond the hypocrisy of Marco Rubio, there's another huge flaw in what the Trump administration is actually arguing here. They're citing a rarely used Cold War law that says that a Secretary of State can deport non-citizens if their activities pose a potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequence. First of all, it's obviously laughable that student protesters or op-eds in student newspapers pose a serious threat to U.S. foreign policy. Honestly, we'd be much better off if these protests actually had any kind of impact on our foreign policy. But there's another huge flaw in what Marco Rubio and, by extension, Donald Trump are saying. The Columbia student encampments, which Mahmoud Khalil was a part of, they actually took place in the spring of 2024. You know who was president at the time? Joe Biden was the president. Rumaisa Öztürk's op-ed, that was published March 26 of 2024. That was when Joe Biden was president. So think about this argument for a second. Is Marco Rubio seriously arguing that the Trump administration is abducting and attempting to deport these students for undermining Joe Biden's foreign policy? Didn't Donald Trump oppose Joe Biden's foreign policy? Didn't Marco Rubio? I know I certainly did on this show. So what's really going on here? Why are these students being targeted? It's pro-Israel groups such as Canary Mission, Beitar US, and the Miriam Adelson-backed Maccabi Task Force that are behind these abductions. And they're proud of it. Beitar US is described in today's Washington Post as a militant Zionist group that's been around for a century. They are so extreme that even the Anti-Defamation League, you know, which supports the detention of Mahmoud Khalil, they list Beitar as a hate group that openly embraces Islamophobia and harasses Muslims online and in person.
So this is, again, like they're making a play for this. And it could be this, if that guy is Mossad, that reporter, and they just, you know, punked Trump and his administration by, you know, being invited to a group and then they're making it look like he's a reporter and not somebody who's, you know, this whole bullshit, right? You know, they're making a play for like America, like complete control or something. I mean, that's what I would suppose all this fake shit is, right? All this stuff that's, you know, that's political theater. So let's go to, speaking of political theater, let's go to these next few things here.
Live to Capitol Hill to mark that moment. We're also watching, of course, the election in Wisconsin. Voters are deciding whether that state Supreme Court will lean left or right at the end of the night. The outcome could provide Democrats and Republicans with a roadmap of how to run campaigns in this Trump's second term. Let's go.
So I turned on the news last night, Tuesday. It was election night in America, and they were like fucking going in on the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. You know, there's a show, a Netflix show. It's like a documentary, and these guys are being convicted. They were like junkyard guys, kind of uneducated, ignorant. One was a kid who his confession was completely coerced. Like anybody watching it would see his confession was coerced. He was like thinking, you know, he would confess and then he would go down and go to like McDonald's and shit. You know, they were arresting him. He's like a high school kid. And it was just a fucking mess. And the Wisconsin court system is so corrupt. You know, there's these places in America, And Wisconsin is one of them. But either way, even if it wasn't, this is silly. Like, they're treating this like it's the redo of the last election and how this was indicated. Of course, Elon Musk apparently he was paying people, like he was raffling off $1 million to various voters. Like, he was trying to, like, I don't know exactly the story, but we saw him doing the cheesehead shit, which we'll get into. And then we'll see the opposite effect, the Hammer guy and Rachel Maddow gloating, which I'll get into in a moment. But they covered this like it was actual stuff, like it was a real thing, and it's clearly not. I mean, but that's how intense things are. And then there's this Cory Booker thing.
My efforts today are inadequate to stop what they're trying to do. But we, the people, are powerful. We are strong.
We're powerful and we're strong, are we? So this is what this video is about here, is about how we're not powerful and strong, right? I mean, in terms of our divinity, in terms of all these things, but, we've sold our souls by committing to this system. And our ancestors sold our souls and their souls, by leaving the farm and their villages and their tribes, or, being forced into this system where, demonic energy and sociopaths rule, where they've made a system where they have a decided advantage. The bad people have a decided advantage. And I'm going to show you a clip from Ari Meebler. It actually preceded this. I have the video from YouTube. This is the stuff I took off the TV. But he's showing Joe Rogan. And it's like they're rolling out all these stops, thinking that somehow they're going to get Trump to stop, or, who knows what their real intentions are, but that's what their official story is. They're trying to get Trump to stop, and he ain't going to fucking stop, right? You got to stop him, right? You want to be the man, you got to beat the man. You got to stop this motherfucker. You can't, he has to be stopped, right? And even if he's stopped, the country's going to shit anyway. This is why I always say, you don't have to destroy this evil country because it's destroying itself. It's the nature of evil. Eventually it destroys itself because it's not backed by divinity. And so you don't have to beat them. You don't have to, the good doesn't have to conquer evil. The good just has to let evil, just let it happen. Let evil do what evil does, which is self-destruct. But let's go back to Cory here.
Are inadequate to stop what they're trying to do. But we, the people, are powerful. We are strong. We have changed history. We have bent the arc of the moral universe. And now is that moral moment again.
Senator Cory Booker speaking in this marathon speech. He is now 29 minutes away from breaking the all-time record. For those who dismiss these kind of matters as more political theater, remember, other senators, presidential candidates like Ted Cruz, others in the Democratic Party have tried to do this before and never actually hit the record that he would tonight at 7:19 p.m. Eastern.
That's the dumbest shit ever, Ari Meebler. He said, you've dismissed this as political theater. It's totally political theater. Cory Booker with that great speech, and I'd show you to it. I'm just too fucking tired to. I gotta like minimalist this video a little bit, but I've showed you this before. You've probably seen it on your own. When Cory Booker is fucking talking about his best friend pork chop. I mean, not pork chop. What is it? T-bone. T-bone. Cory's one of the biggest political theater guys, right? The best thing Cory Booker ever did was he put Joe Biden on blast in that debate. He totally punked the guy. And, and I'd show you that, but I've showed you that so many times. When him and Kamala Harris were laughing at Joe Biden and couldn't believe that he was beating them in the African-American community when they were, African-American. But Cory Booker's doing this. It has no effect. It's going to do nothing. And Joe Rogan coming out against Trump is going to do nothing, right? And I'm going to show you these things now. And this, this win of the Supreme Court, because Trump isn't behind any of this stuff. Like, Trump is the epitome of a puppet because Trump is disinterested and bored by politics and the, all the things you need to do to be successful is you have to be like a policy wonk. You have to be into reading these bills and understanding the political system. It bores the shit out of Trump, just as business did. Trump is very, he just sucks on every level.
Attorney General Pam Bondi says the Justice Department will seek the death penalty for Luigi Mangione in his federal case after he was charged with murdering the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in front of his hotel in Midtown Manhattan last December. CNN's Kara Scannell has been covering this for us. Kara, what do we know about this announcement from the Justice Department today? And also, what are we hearing from Luigi Mangione's defense team here?
Well, Caitlin, Attorney General Pam Bondi said that she was going to seek the death penalty in this case because she said this was a premeditated, cold-blooded murder that shocked the nation.
Okay, so speaking of political fucking theater, and so everything's a joke. Like, it's just all a fucking joke. And it's, you know, it all looks staged and faked. And, you know, I mean, especially this thing. I mean, this is one of the big things that looks so staged and fake. But what they're saying here is you can't kill CEOs. No matter what damage CEOs do to people, no matter what the health community, the healthcare system, the allopathic medical system and big pharma and these insurance agencies do to people, you can't take law into your own hands, and if you do, we'll kill you, right? You know, because the guy certainly shouldn't have the death penalty compared to other mass murderers. I mean, she's doing this as political theater, and this is coming from Trump, and Trump was big into this because this is one of Trump's people. And he's saying you can't kill our people. And the majority of Americans are like, well, we're not, you know, they might not love what Luigi Mangione did, right? But they sympathize with his principles and his view of the healthcare system, because everyone's had bad experiences with it, and, you know, all the rest of it.
Now, Mangione has been charged with multiple state and federal charges. He's pleaded not guilty to them. And in the federal charges, he's charged with one count of murder through the use of a firearm. That's the charge that is eligible for the death penalty if he is convicted. Now, his attorney at a recent court hearing had said that she was in talks with the Justice Department around the question of whether they would seek the death penalty. Clearly, they did not go her way. And in a statement today, his attorney, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, said in part, by seeking to murder Luigi Mangione, the Justice Department has moved from the dysfunctional to the barbaric. Their decision to execute Luigi is political and goes against the recommendation of the local federal prosecutors, the law, and historical precedent. By doing this, they are defending the broken, immoral, and murderous healthcare industry that continues to terrorize the American people. This is a corrupt web of government dysfunction and one-upmanship. She says Luigi is caught in a high-stakes game of tug-of-war between state prosecutors and federal prosecutors, except the trophy is a young man's life. So this being, though, one of the first moves by the Justice Department to seek a death penalty case under the Trump administration.
See, this was an attack on the ruling class. I mean, you know, again, fake as fuck, all these things. But this is the message they're sending you, right? And they're going to keep on sending it. And then there's a point where Trumpers will be disgruntled. And Trump's going to say, fuck you, right? Because that's what Trump says to anybody who doesn't think he's great. And, well, you know, let them eat cake. I mean, there'll be a time when maybe even the Trumpers turn on him. But even if they don't, everyone else is going to know he's a piece of shit. And he's already displaying it full on. His policies are ridiculous. Today's, you know, Liberation Day, and I've not even watched the news today because I've been so fucking... I had this nightmare thing with my dub, which I have a whole story. I can't even get it out right now. It's too fresh. I'm too tired. But I'll either cover that at the end of this video tomorrow. But, you know, it's a fucking absolute mess, right? And let's go to the Joe Rogan thing. Like a bunch of things to show you here that are all tied together.
You got to get scared that people who are not criminals are getting, like, lassoed up and deported and sent to, like, El Salvador prisons. This is kind of crazy that could be possible. That's horrific, and that's bad for the cause. Like, the cause is let's get the gang members out. Everybody agrees, but let's not innocent gay hairdressers get lumped up with the gangs, and then, like, how long before that guy can get out? Can we figure out how to get him out? Is there any plan in place to alert the authorities that they've made a horrible mistake?
The guy that Joe Rogan is talking about is Andre Jose Hernandez Romero. He is the gay Venezuelan makeup artist.
Kaboom.
That was flown to a maximum security prison in El Salvador for having...
He looks kind of like a gang member to me.
...crown tattoos, which is apparently, for the Trump administration, proof that he is in a gang. This case is just one of many we have learned about where tattooed non-gang members have been uprooted and sent to El Salvador with zero due process. And to Joe Rogan's point, it is horrific, and it was a horrible mistake.
Okay, so me showing you this is CNN did a whole piece showing Joe Rogan clip. Now, remember how they hated Joe Rogan? Doug told them about how he was taking horse dewormer and all that stuff with ivermectin, all that shit. They talked about him being anti-vaxxer, the way they attacked him, how he was the worst person, how he had too many viewers and all this shit need to be censored. This is their rhetoric. Ari Meebler had another piece on Joe Rogan, the same thing, and he had his own point of view. But now all of a sudden Joe Rogan's worthy of listening to because Joe Rogan was pivotal in Trump winning the election. You know, I'm watching this show, Adolescence. One of my viewers said to watch it. It's a fucking masterpiece. Disturbing as fuck. Takes place in England. I had to turn on, a lot of these English movies I have to turn on, TV shows or movies I have to turn on the subtitles. But it deals with the incels and a whole bunch of, fucking brutal. These kids and their whole social system and whatever. And I'll cover that more in the future, in my next video probably. But this stuff that I'm talking about here is how they're getting desperate. Cory Booker, and I'll show you a little bit more of his fucked up 24-hour thing that he did. And, they're making it seem like, they've said this stuff before where they're thinking of themselves as info warriors. The Alex Jones model that we all know is a failure is to wake everybody up and to get everybody informed. And then once you do that, all these fucking couch potatoes that can't do their own research and can't think for themselves will somehow be the uprising since you've informed them. They'll get angry and they'll get, activated even though they're the most passive, low-life piece of shits that, basically need to be watered. They're like vegetables. And, somehow they're going to turn things around. It's silly. Like if you don't have a plan or ability to turn things around, like Cory Booker saying that he's inadequate, but people are strong. And I'm like, come on, bro. It's silly. Because there's nothing stopping America from doing what it's about to do. And it isn't Trump that's making it happen. Trump is their fall guy. Trump is their weapon for now. Joe Biden isn't any of these people. It's the system itself, and this is what the system was inevitably going to do. And every once in a while, they have to redistribute the power and wealth, and they're going to take America down because they have to. There's no choice, and I've talked about this extensively. And I think most people can kind of see it, but don't want to see it because what it means to all of us in terms of our lifestyle and our quality of life and things like that. But it's a divine, this whole stuff I was talking about in my last couple of videos about, why would God save America? Because it's silly. Like, look at what we're looking at here. And so they're pushing all this stuff out there like it has some fucking meaning. And it doesn't. It's just silly.
Talk of civil war used to be the stuff of history class or maybe speculative. Talk of civil war used to be the stuff of history class or maybe speculative fiction. But today, scholars of history and political science.
I didn't do that. That they did on its own where it just start over.
Now openly discuss.
What's the kind of fucking moon shit is she wearing here? That's a weird.
The possibility of a new American Civil War. My next guest, Professor Barbara F. Walter, is an expert on civil wars around.
Barbara Walter?
The world. She has spent years advising the CIA on the subject. In her work examining.
Because CIA is not about division at all. CIA has done nothing to start civil wars all across the world.
The seeds of civil war in distant lands, she started noticing some of those warning signs close to home right here in America, long before most others did. She's been sounding the alarm about the threat since at least 2008, and her message today is that we should not ignore those warning signs, but also that we can take steps to lessen the threat. Now, before she joins us, let's take a minute to dig into her findings. Walter's research looked at which...
Okay, so civil war is happening, and it's just, all we need is a, less of a piece of the pie, right? Less of the, less resources, where people will freak the fuck out. Like in America, it won't take much, quality of life, these things. Like everyone's ready to go. People are angry. I've noticed it in sports and, people like this thing with Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James and, People just getting into it. People are just on edge. I mean, it's a whole thing, right? Animals can tell when, like, the storm is coming. Remember the storm is coming when Trump said that, and all the QBs went, yeah, a storm's coming. And now the storm is coming, but it's a fucked up storm, and it's out to screw you over. But Civil, I'm not going to watch the rest of this because it's just silly. This idea that these things can be stopped. The whatever kind of, when there's opposing parties, the Democrats and Republicans, the conservatives and the liberals, and they can, get along enough. You can get along with your liberal relatives and shit, but that shit's all over. People are, it's hard to talk to somebody that doesn't share your beliefs. It's almost impossible because now your beliefs are about everything. As a truther, like everything's fake and, everything, whatever. You don't believe the official story about anything. So it sucks to talk to you for these people, these normies. They don't want to talk to somebody who's, well, the truth about it is, and they're like, no, my God, not again. So it's just, and you don't want to talk to sheeple because they have almost nothing of value to say, right? Unless they're experts about something like reglazing a tub or something. And so, like this is, a part of their whole thing. Like this is, it's the sky's falling. It's Chicken Little stuff, but it actually is kind of really falling, right? So YouTube recommended this to me, and it just tied all this stuff together because it's Rachel Maddow and the Hammer guy celebrating, which is hard to watch, because remember when Trump won the last election, they were so bummed for so long, even though it meant good ratings, and this time they're riding the wave of the Trump, incompetence and his being the fall guy, and they're just digging it way too much.
All right, that does it for me for now. Wow. I'll see you again tomorrow. Now it's time for the last word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Lawrence is back to just in time. Lawrence, we missed you so much.
Well, Rich,
come on, like nobody misses Lawrence. Totally looks like Two-Face from Batman.
It is so great to be back. And this result in Wisconsin is a huge, huge defeat for Elon Musk, who, as we saw, personally went full cheesehead, thinking, that's how to appeal to people?
That was pretty lame. And, that was brutally lame. I covered that in my last video. But look at how happy they are. Look, they're like fucking glowing. These fucking dark ghouls are glowing.
In Wisconsin and handing out those $1 million checks, literally trying to buy the election, physically doing the buying on TV. So this is just a huge setback for Elon Musk and therefore for Donald Trump.
When I first saw the news at the end of last week that Musk was going to not just put his money into this race, but that he was going to physically go to Wisconsin, do a campaign event, do this stunt where he pays voters and do this whole thing again, I thought, that is great news for the Democrats.
It's great news for the Democrats.
Because there are few people in American public life who are as underwater in terms of the way the American public views them as Elon Musk is. But seeing the way that Mr. Musk behaved in Wisconsin, seeing the way that like MAGA media portrayed this as something that was actually going to help that candidate there, I started to wonder, maybe I'm looking at the wrong polls. Maybe they're seeing something else that I'm not seeing.
Is that what you're saying, John? Maybe I didn't say any of that shit, right? You weren't saying that. You were like, you knew this was going to happen.
Maybe Elon Musk is going to help this guy. But this is to have this margin within less than an hour to have this call within less than an hour of polls closing with the kind of margin it looks like it's going to end up there in Wisconsin. This is just a kick in the proverbial teeth to the White House.
Proverbial teeth, it's a Supreme Court in Wisconsin, right? Like they're making it sound like this is better than Trump winning.
To Mr. Musk.
I had certainly been told not to expect a call before 11 p.m. And therefore write as much TV show as you want because...
You don't write your own show, Two-Face. Look at Two-fucking-Face.
You're not going to have the breaking news moment. And it turns out I didn't. You did. And that's important, too, how quickly... And this was called, which is to say how decisive this win is.
Decisive. It was one of the most decisive Supreme Court wins in Wisconsin I've ever seen.
Has to be at this
Yes.
point.
That's
Yep.
exactly right.
Yep.
And this is going to, I mean, they just pulled Elise Stefanik's nomination to be UN ambassador because they were worried about their ability to hold on to her seat, which she just won by 24 points. The Republicans and Elon Musk are in a position right now where they have to worry about seats that have 24-point Republican margins.
That's where they're at right now. That's where they're totally at that place. You make it sound like the people are going to trust the Democrats again, like they'll vote for them or not vote at all or whatever. But you know, regardless of this thing, the damage that Trump's doing and the damage that Biden did, you know, on the behalf of the fucking people who want to take America down because they have no other fucking choice, which I've said before, and the divine will here. Like, it's just, you know, I mean, they're so far behind the fucking curve. Like, they're so late to the fucking party, right?
Margins. They have to worry about losing seats like this in a statewide race in a state they just won by what looks to be a decisive margin where you get the call within the hour. I mean, the American people are speaking in lots of different ways, but this is the first time they've really had the chance to speak at the ballot box, and it is with an exclamation point.
Well,
Boom. Boom. Yes, Wisconsin.
As we saw Cory Booker in those remarkable 25 hours, one of the things that...
Remarkable. Cory Booker has not done anything remarkable. And 24 hours, I mean, speaking for 25 hours just because you want the fucking record.
That sustained him, that carried him through it, was something that we've never seen before in a filibuster like this. And that was direct communication from voters while it was happening.
No way. No fucking way. He was talking to people from Wisconsin when he's from New Jersey, and through the miracle of social media, no fucking way. He did that shit. No wonder he spoke for 25 hours, because reading people's tweets, I mean, that's
emails, including in the middle of the night last night when I was watching, my favorite.
You were watching. Look at fucking Two-Face.
Favorite time to watch a filibuster is middle of the night, the lonely hours for the senator who's up there speaking. He received a series of emails.
So you were sick and tired of watching young Justin Bieber videos?
From Wisconsin. And he was reading those emails from Wisconsin voters.
No fucking way. Oh, I mean, I missed it. Fuck, I missed that. Holy shit. Is it 25 hours on the internet somewhere? I didn't know he was reading fucking emails from people from Wisconsin.
That were so powerful about their worries about Social Security, about their future. And I can't help but link those up to what we're seeing in actual expressed voter results tonight in Wisconsin.
Yeah. You know, it also strikes me, Lawrence, that, you know, when Trump was trying to overturn the results of the 2020 election, and he had those dozens and dozens and dozens of failed pseudo-legal efforts.
Yeah, remember Rudy Giuliani's face melted? It was epic.
To try to get somebody to side with him in overthrowing the election results. The place that he got closest was the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
No way. And it's just come back to fucking bite him in the ass. Incredible. It's like a fucking, what is that thing of the Lion King, right? The something of life, chain of life. Miracle of life type of thing. I mean, the fact that they're glowing and happy, I mean, this is just what Trump is like, you know, Trump's failure and his going full Trump has liberated these two fucking people from their miserable, ghoulish freaking personas for a couple of days or, you know, a couple of years or whatever it takes. Okay, one more thing to get to here.
Forbes just released its annual list of the world's billionaires, and it is the biggest ever. 3,028 people made the cut.
Boom, more billionaires. Cool. It's working. Economy's working.
And they're worth a record $16.1 trillion.
Boom, they could pay off half the national debt. If they all chipped in their collective wealth, they could pay half the debt off.
More than the GDP of every country in the world other than the U.S. and China. Topping the list, familiar faces: Elon Musk.
Boom, Elon.
Zuckerberg. Jeff
Boom, Zuckerberg.
Bezos.
I thought Bezos was worth $1 trillion. What happened?
Larry Ellison, the family behind the LVMH empire. Donald Trump, by the way, who put billionaire at the center of his brand, made the list this year.
Finally, he's a billionaire now. He he's been lying about for years.
Worth more than doubling in the last 12 months. Joining me now is Dan Alexander, senior editor at Forbes and author of White House Inc. Okay, Dan, what is Donald Trump's net worth today, and how did it jump so much in just a year?
It's about $5.1 billion, which is up from $2.3 billion a year ago. And the two largest drivers behind that increase are
Truth Social, which I said he should have done before the 2020 election.
Number one, the parent company of Truth Social.
I knew that. I didn't.
Social media venture, which really hasn't figured out a good way to make money yet, but nonetheless is trading on the public markets at super high prices, which implies a multi-billion-dollar stake for Donald Trump. And number two, all these crypto ventures that he's done. And those things, while you might laugh at them, you might not think that they're serious, they provide real cash. And they've roughly doubled Trump's cash pile to now where he's sitting on about $770 million of liquidity, more than he had at any time during.
So there it is, crypto and fucking Truth Social. All like, this is all truther stuff that he's taken and, monetized with his fucking fish boy face. Okay. So today is, I don't know, Thursday the 3rd, I think. Thursday, March 3rd. I'm just finishing up this video. There's a few more clips. I'm going to cover the terrorists in the next video. But let's start here.
Check out this time-lapse video we have of Democratic Senator Cory Booker from the Garden State of New Jersey delivering his record-breaking speech on the floor of the U.S. Senate.
It was record-breaking. Like, it's just what they've been reduced to, right? Because this is just somebody talking for over 24 hours. Which, like, nobody's listening, right? Like, nobody gives a shit about what Cory Booker says. Cory Booker ran for president and got less than 1% of the vote in the Democratic primary vote, not even the whole country. And, he's tried to make himself relevant in some way or another. But, it's just somebody talking. Like, this isn't like this is just an endurance record. Well, talking for 24 hours or 25 hours, it's kind of an accomplishment, right? But nobody didn't say anything worth anything, right? It isn't like any part of the speech is going to be like, oh my God, that's amazing. I can't believe he said that. That's incredible, right? Like, you talk for 25 hours and there's no quotable things. There's nothing great from it. There's no inspirational part of it, right? It's the only thing that he's being congratulated for is doing something poorly for 25 hours, right? Doing something worthless for 25 hours, right? It's like, not fixing something for 25 hours or not, completing something, not building something or not, not cleaning something or whatever, whatever you're supposed to do. There's the act, which is supposed to be quality. It's just quantity. What he's done is quantity, right? There's no quality.
25 hours and 4 minutes, the longest speech in the history of the U.S. Senate.
No way, it's just crazy.
Listen to what he said about the state of the Democratic Party right now.
I confess that I've been inadequate to the moment. I confess that the Democratic Party has made terrible mistakes, that have given lane to this demagogue. I confess we all must look in the mirror and say we will do better. And it's not just a fight.
You're not going to do better, though. You're not. Like, this is what you're reduced to. Like, you're fucking 100% not going to do better. You can say that. You can say that you guys completely, gave a runway for Trump to do what Trump's done by electing a guy, and you ran against the guy. You couldn't beat a guy, Joe Biden, like that moment where Cory Booker, well, let's just show the moment because this is kind of a classic thing. The Democratic debates in 2019 for the 2020 election were epic. They had over 20 candidates. They had to cover these things in 2 nights. Joe Biden was leading based on his name alone, the fact that he was the only sort of nationally prominent candidate. He was walking off the stage. He was losing his shit. Like, I mean, he just totally was showing signs of dementia. And they couldn't beat him, and it drove him nuts. And it drove Cory Booker and Kamala Harris nuts that he was winning in the African American community. I mean, it was like stunning to them, right?
I have a lot of respect for the vice president. He has sworn me into my office as a hero. This week, I hear him literally.
He's a hero, right? So there's Tulsi Gabbard, there's Klobuchar, there's Pete Buttigieg, there's Elizabeth Warren, right? And then, there was a host of other people. This is like later on, as people started to drop out. But there was over 20 to start with, right? There was some guy who had a funny name from Colorado, used to mock. The less than 1% people. There's people who got less than 1% of the vote, right?
Literally say that I don't think we should legalize marijuana. I thought you might have been high when you said it. and let me tell you.
He just goes over the top, right? Like Cory Booker, somebody who tries to be like over emotional and like make big moments out of little moments, nothing moments, and like this thing he's doing. We'll go back to that, with the thing about I confess that we've let you down and I've been inadequate, like this kind of thing, right? Big emotional type of things, and they don't land. Like he doesn't land. He doesn't connect with people.
Because marijuana in our country is already legal for privilege.
Look at it. Look how hyped up he is. Like he's just, it's so big, right? Oh, it's a big moment. Marijuana.
People, and the war on drugs has been a war on black and brown people.
And so you could see even back then how clueless Joe Biden was. This is 2020, 2019, whatever it was, the year the primary before the election, and
and so let me just say this: with more African Americans under criminal supervision in America than all the slaves since 1850, do not roll up into communities and not talk directly to issues that are going to relate to the liberation of children, because there are people in Congress right now that...
See how emotional he is? That's so big. It's so big what I'm saying. It's so important. Like it's too much enthusiasm, right? For, but he just doesn't connect. Like there's an insincerity there. Like it's they're all bullshitters, but this is a particular kind of bullshit, right? This is his bullshit du jour, right? His bullshit of choice.
Admit to smoking marijuana, while there are our kids are in jail right now for those drug crimes. And so these are the kind of issues.
He wants Joe Magoo has something to say.
Community, and if we don't have somebody authentically, we lost the last election. Let me just give you this.
Okay, so let's move forward here to what Joe goes here.
Should be let out of jail, their records expunged, it be completely zeroed out. But I do think it makes sense, based on data, that we should study what the long-term effects are for the use of marijuana. That's all.
Nobody knows. Nobody has any idea. It's only been used for like fucking hundreds of thousands of years. We don't know what marijuana does.
It is. Number one, everybody gets out, record expunged. Secondly, I'm part of that Obama coalition. I come out of the black community in terms of my support. If you notice, I have more people supporting me in the black community.
This drove him nuts, right? And then Kamala Harris gets in here.
That announced for me because they know me. They know who I am. 3 former chairs of the Black Caucus. The only African-American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate. A whole range of people.
No,
my point is...
That's not true. The other one is here.
Look how close he is. He's going to lie and pretend he didn't say that. Look at it. Look at how fucking, like this moment where he's like, his brain doesn't work, right? His cognitive issues. Parkinson's.
I said the first.
No, I said the first. No, we just heard you said the only. Like he changed the only to the first, and then they're dumbfounded that this guy's beating them, right?
I said the first African American elected. Come on. First African American. So my point is, one of the
Thomas got that cackle she's doing. They're laughing at him because he's fucking senile.
I was picked to be vice president.
She's laughing at him, right? So, because she's the other one. And, then this whole thing, I mean, think about how all this went, right? From that moment to the election to this moment to Trump being president again. Think about all the shit. So all the shit that went down. So this is his imaginary friend named T-Bone. You know how Joe Biden had that imaginary guy named Corn Pop? He's got T-Bone. And...
important challenge. That rift T-Bone comes to me after I get elected and says to me, Cory, can we go for a ride?
No way. T-Bone said that? Fucking T-Bone.
And I say, T-Bone, your car or mine? And I very nervously get into his car. And we drive off of Martin Luther King Boulevard up South Orange Avenue. And South Orange Avenue is one of the stranger streets in America. Because as soon as you punch out of Newark, it's suddenly like going in the Wizard of Oz, from black and white to Technicolor. And suddenly there's these huge homes. In fact, children from Newark's parents who live just maybe 100 yards away, sometimes they'll use false addresses in South Orange or Montclair to sneak their children into the better schools.
No way. Just what about T-Bone? Get back to fucking T-Bone. Nothing about the Orange County. What's here about T-Bone?
And those towns have people that follow around these minority children, see where they're going home, and then we'll remove them, send them back to Newark schools, and bill them for the tuition for the time that they took them there. This is a wonderful country we live in. And
well, that's because they're paying money in their county for the schools, and that people are lying about where they live to use the better schools, which again there is definitely a fucked up kind of rigged system. But what you're saying is, like, they're cheating the system. Just like the system, you're saying that people have cheated the system and rigged the system based in color. But then you're saying that the people that you're trying to defend are also trying to cheat the system. Everyone's a liar and a cheat, right?
So we drove into South Orange, and we pull over to the side of the road, and I sit there, and T-Bone tells me, you got to get me out of here. And I'm like, okay, T-Bone, I got some programs, some plans. You see, we at that point had gotten the drug dealers away from the front of the building. We at that point had gotten the slumlord convicted in federal court. Ms. Jones danced that day.
Ms. Jones likes to dance.
We got the local school adopted by Prudential. We now have a health center there. We got the crack house torn down.
All the stuff, he's got that stuff done.
Here's T-Bone, to me, feeling incredibly confident. He says to me, you got to help me get out of here. And I'm like, T-Bone, I got some programs, some plans. I know some things we can do. He goes, you don't understand something. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, and he basically explains to me that he has warrants out for his arrest.
T-Bone's a wanted man.
They're closing in on him. And I hadn't seen him for a few weeks. And I'm now listening to him tell me this story. And suddenly T-Bone starts telling me his story, which again is the same story for the first 12 years or so of my dad's first 12 years. Born to a single mother. Born poor. My father used to say, I can't afford to be, when I was young, I couldn't afford to be poor. I was just PO, P-O. The other two letters, couldn't afford them yet.
Boom. Couldn't afford the last two letters of poor. That's how poor he was. He was just PO. He wasn't poor, he was just PO, but now he's got this, his dad, T-Bone, went through the same bullshit as each other.
Same thing. Him and his mother had him, mother couldn't take care of him. My father's, my grandmother, biological grandmother, couldn't take care of my dad. They both were taken into the community. The community that absorbed T-Bone was community gang members. And T-Bone's life spiraled down from there. Here he's telling me this story about his childhood, going through it in detail, and I'm not hearing him anymore. I'm looking at my dad, a guy who's evidenced more genius than me, a guy that was controlling a business, probably making more revenue than I'll ever control in a business. And sitting there looking at each other, he's telling me this story, I'm off thinking about my dad and how that this glorious movement, the civil rights movement.
Again, so this whole bigger than life emotional moment he's having with this imaginary friend, right? Named T-Bone.
Began to make real on the American promise, had gotten twisted to the point that there we were sitting there, two young black men sitting there looking at each other. And I began to think to myself, you know what, this guy looks like me. This guy could be my dad. And suddenly,
maybe he is your dad.
He looks at me, snapping me back to focus with the same ferocity with which he threatened my life. Same ferocity. And then he says to me, and he bursts into tears.
No way, T-Bone. Come on, T-Bone. Hold it together.
And starts crying, this powerful, macho, young black male sobbing into my dashboard. And then Barbara Jordan came back to me.
I thought you got into his car.
Because the rest of the quote there is simple.
You just see, like we said in the beginning here, right here's the thing.
Your car or mine? And I very nervously get into his car.
But you were he was sobbing into your dashboard. So you can't even get the fucking car straight because it's a fucking bullshit story of a guy you just made up named T-Bone, unless it's George Costanza from fucking Seinfeld. So like he does this over emotional bullshit, right? And people just don't they don't buy it, right? They just don't fucking buy it. He's just never been, a quality speaker. It's just an insincerity about the guy, everything he says, and it's just, this whole thing. Let's go back to it.
Confess that I've been inadequate to the moment. I confess that the Democratic Party has made terrible mistakes.
They're trying to be desperate, right? This fake desperation.
That have given lane to this demagogue. I confess we all must look in the mirror and say we will do better. And it's not just defining ourselves what we're against.
Somebody walk behind him there.
And Senator Booker.
Okay, so there he is. We're going to get into this in a second. So, in Sajmarg, the third master of the Sajmarg system, said to preceptors, people doing this voluntary position, he said sometimes people just want a patient hearing. You're just there to listen to them talk about whatever, right? It's not really all that important. You're not, saying anything great. They just want to emote. And, it's part of the cleaning process. And then, people just want to be heard. And that's, so prevalent now in social media and, people across the country. And in various forms. Like, it's like, somebody who wants to be a singer goes on, like, American Idol or The Voice or whatever. Or just has a YouTube channel or something, or, does stuff on TikTok, right? And they put out their music or, whatever it is. And so for politicians, they want to be seen and given a shot at the national stage. These politicians, they make it on a local basis or, New Jersey's a pretty big state. And so Cory Booker's won one of the 2 Senate seats from that state. So he's had some success, right? But now he wants to be president. He's wanted to be president since 2020 or whatever. I mean, that was his first shot. And they get up and they're in these debates and they're, they are put out there and they have to win over certain people, people with money, people in the party to promote them. And Kamala Harris did. She won over those people. And then she got up on the debate stage and people are like, oh, fuck, we don't like her, right? Joe Biden, the same thing. Joe Biden for years, he wanted to be seen as, a potential presidential candidate, but he got caught plagiarizing. No one thought he was a presidential type of person. And then he got Parkinson's, and he popped because they kind of forced it on people, and because of his association with Obama, he had, some percentage of people, and people looked at him as somebody who could rival Trump for some reason. They thought he was the only person who could beat Trump, right? But the American people didn't really like him. Like, they just, for years, they thought he was a joke, which he was. And then he got Parkinson's, he was even worse. And then they ran him. And so Cory Booker is looking for that moment, right? That's what this stuff's all about. But people have looked at him and said, no, you're not, we're not into you, right? I mean, it's, this happens all the time on social media. People think they have something to say. And, it doesn't really even matter whether you have something to say or not. And Cory Booker certainly doesn't have something to say. Cory Booker is just performative, political theater person. He's just over the top too. He overacts, right? He's a person that he overacts. He's just, it's not natural or normal. It's not a flow to it, right? It's just all performative. But, people, even if you have something great to say, people might not hear it. And more times than not, they won't hear it. And the more intellectual it is, the more intelligent it is, the deeper it is, the more spiritual it is, stuff that I talk about here, the more off-putting it is to people because they just want to hear gossip and low-level mundane bullshit, right? That's why I have to cover celebrities, or I used to, I occasionally still do. And this other stuff that I don't even care about, right? Because that's where people are at. Like, they don't want to hear about the spiritual stuff, which is fine, which is just what it is. If it's not fine, it's just where humanity is, right? Sometimes you're giving people a shot at something great, like you have something to offer people, and they just say no, like because they just aren't there yet, or they're that's just not something that they're willing to do, and that's that's what's happening now with humanity. Like, you can see that the popular stuff, the stuff that humanity gravitates to, is killing us, right? And we're fucking walking off a cliff, and people still are going to just go towards the lower. It's a sad part of the human nature. You know, there's been these great spiritual movements and uplifting movements and even, you know, ones that are material that are about higher level consciousness. I mean, you can say even the Constitution and some of the great parts of the American government were, you know, to appeal to people's higher nature, even though the guys who put it out there were slave owners and all that bullshit. But there's some great stuff in the American government and some, you know, spiritual aspects of the document and you know, all these things. And look, it still goes down to the lowest common denominator. You know, idiocracy, right? Even with this great technology, we're going in the wrong way in terms of our personal development. And so Cory Booker's trying to pop here, but I know he's not going to pop because he's had his say. He's had his, you know, patient hearing, and the American people are like, nah, not Cory, not you, bro.
Is joining me now, and for anybody watching at home, please understand we gave him a chair. He's sitting in a chair right now. The illusion is that he's standing.
Oh, thank God.
But for people who don't know,
the illusion is ending. The illusion is ending. He's just all bullshit.
But for people,
let's go back a little bit more.
The illusion is that he's standing. But for people who don't know, you had to stand the whole time. You couldn't take a bathroom break. The only break of any sort you got was if one of your colleagues would ask you a question to give your voice a break.
Yes.
How are you feeling? Yeah, physically and also emotionally, the longest speech in the history of the U.S. Senate.
Well, I'm physically not in the best shape, but I am emotionally just feeling really fed right now and grateful. And
feeling fed because you got to talk for 25 hours and 4 minutes. I feel so fed by my fucking rambling. I rambled on the Senate floor for, you know, they said nothing of any substance for 25 hours and 4 minutes.
Kind of just really grateful for a lot of the people who lent support to the effort, and obviously the constituents, the dozens and dozens of folks who gave me their stories, who gave me their hurt, their pain, their anger, their demands of me that I read.
And I did it. It was wonderful.
And they're really humble.
The MSNBC also covered this, like had an interview with him.
Offers that tell me what I can do. It was some very moving speeches, and then some of my colleagues came on the floor and just told them very emotional stories too that really sourced me through the whole challenge.
It was obviously a very emotional experience. Just one more question on the physicality.
You know, so one of these senators go, I'm going for the record, right? And that's it. Like, you got the record. You know, congratulations.
Of it, which is, you were a football star at Stanford University. You're 56 years old now, but you were a football star 20-something years ago.
It's Stanford, right? He's talking about. So Stanford's a great school for academics. Like, you know, it's on the level of Harvard's. You know, it's in California, and except they have better, like, you know, football programs and basketball programs. But it's elite. It's an elite school. You know, Cory Booker's from New Jersey. You know, like, he's all going to Stanford, playing football, and I had no idea that was part of it. And then now this is what he's become.
Was this more difficult than being a football star and taking some of those hits on the gridiron?
It was just different, my friend. It was just different. This was real, physical challenge. I had to think of a lot of strategic things to do in order to prepare for it. And then, and you're right, I'm a lot older than that football player, a lot less hair too.
And what about Corn Pop? Where's T-Bone?
So it was a challenge, it was a trial, but I really felt lifted by the energy as Congress people started coming over, a lot of my CBC, Congressional Black Caucus friends. It just turned out to be, when the gallery started filling up, it was a lot of folks' energy that really carried me to try to do as I sort of framed the whole speech with John Lewis's demand to all of us. His spirit just talked a lot about doing good trouble.
All right. So he talks about how he had to basically withhold. Well, maybe it's coming.
Yeah.
Necessary trouble.
That was a very moving part of your speech. We should note the previous record was set rather ignominiously by then Democrat, eventually he became a Republican, Senator Strom Thurmond, who was filibustering the Civil Rights Act in 1957, you weren't filibustering anything. You were giving.
Let's see what he says here. This.
You're trampling on our Article 1.
Okay, let's we're going to show you some more stuff here.
Tried to stop the rights upon which I stand. I'm not here, though, because of his speech. I'm here despite his speech. I'm here because as powerful as he was, the people were more powerful.
Now, let me confess. You told me that you were going to try to do this. Now, you didn't say that you were going to make it to beat Strom Thurmond. You didn't even know if you were going to make it to the top 10. Chris Murphy, I guess, was number 10 in terms of the history books. I think Ted Cruz was maybe 6 or something like that, maybe 5. But in any case, did you think you were going to be able to achieve this, and how does it feel?
Right. So at some point, the title of this video is he fasted and curbed water intake. So he was dehydrated. He was dehydrated and, doing one of his emotional bullshit speeches. And, like this just shows you it's just all performative. Nothing's going to come of this. Like, it's not going to affect Cory Booker's career. It's not going to elevate him to be a serious presidential candidate. People aren't going to vote for him. He will not win over enough American people. His insincerity. I mean, like, in the candidates, the people he's running against are all horrible. Like, they're not, like, great people. Like, these people are not, they wouldn't have a lot of friends in the neighborhood. They're just these fake, contrived, insincere people who don't have anything that's, all these candidates. And Trump is a good bullshitter, but he's unbelievably self-centered and narcissistic and all those things. And yet, he wins over people, but we know how it's all fake and it's all performative from him, but he's like better at connecting with people. And he's not great. Like, there hasn't been a great politician, like, as somebody who's just a good person. Like, we haven't had a good person in years. Like, I don't know, maybe you can make a case about Jimmy Carter. I don't know. At least after his presidency, he was, trying to do actually good things. But, I mean, it's in my lifetime, it's maybe, like my mom liked Jimmy Carter. I met him on a plane. He came up and shook my hand. I've told that story before. But I don't, like, I can't even say, like, someone who's just like a good person, deep down. And good people don't win. I mean, the system rewards for sociopaths and narcissism and self-aggrandizement, people who are braggadocious, all these things, and doing things that are performative like this. Like, it has no bearing on anything. It's just so Cory Booker will be talked about. And so he's got this, moment and a time where big things are happening every day, and then he goes back to being Cory Booker, right? He's reached his, his highest level. I mean, he can hang around, go senile like Joe Biden. Maybe they'll give him a look in 20 years or something, right? But probably not. Okay, so I have some projects going on. I'm doing this thing with refinishing the bathroom, which was turned into a disaster yesterday. The tub, they have this old rusty tub that I have the whole thing, and then the chicks, our baby chickens, rebuilding a bin. It's a low skill thing, but I've been waiting on some hardware cloth. And, it's great to have, it's a beautiful day. I can hear the spring stuff going on outside. We're going to take the dogs for a walk in a second, do the meditation to 7 sittings in 7 days. I got a whole thing to do about that in the introduction next video, about how those things come in together. When you look at politicians, or you look at the situation we're in, it's a desperation right now. Like, it's desperate. There's a lot of things that are breaking down, and it all starts with people. I've said this over and over again. Your system is as good as the people that are in it. And that can go both ways in terms of the people make the system and the system makes the people, right? And so the outcome of your system, the product of your system, both the creators of your system and the product, the end product of your system are people. So your system is to be judged, the American system, the global economy, is to be judged by the people that are in it. And then there's the leadership positions. There's the people that are prominent, that are out front, that are examples of your system. and this is very important. I don't think I've talked about this. This would be the celebrities, the athletes, the people that are, the political people, news people, famous people, right? Internet stars now. The people with money behind the scenes that aren't necessarily famous, but they're rich and influential. And all these people have a bigger influence on the system in their way, whatever way it is, either economically or socially, politically, or you can look at even your religious leaders, the people that are the, big time church, mega churches, these scumbags, right? And on every level, the people who are in these power positions of political power, money power, religious power, military power, social power, right? All these things, social media stars, like all these various levels of influence, people like Oprah Winfrey, people, across the board. They're not as good as the normal people. They're more, they're more self-centered. They're more entitled. They're more everything. Trump, these people who worship Trump has always been a selfish prick, and he always puts himself in front of other people. He's done his whole life. He's somehow convinced people that he's not that way, right? And everybody's looking for somebody else to be better than them. I mean, even to the extent for me, I've said this before, I would hope that everybody went farther along the size mark path, went past me and was better than I was, right? Because I can see how much there is to do spiritually. And, I'm kind of a slacker and, I'm okay, but at least I'm making an effort. So there's why, there's value in my channel, because almost everybody else isn't even embarking on the spiritual journey. But I can see, I wish I was the worst person spiritually in the world, right? I wish everybody was better than me, because it would be, a society full of highly advanced spiritual people. And so, it's, everybody expects other people to be better than them. Everybody expects that other people will be, they look down on other people, and yet they expect other people to be, more generous or more kind or more, even in, marital relationships and these types of relationships, they always expect the other person to be, loving and loving them unconditionally, but they get to shit on their spouse, like these things, right? People are all thinking that other people are better than them and should be better than them, even though they look down on people. It's a weird dynamic, but nobody thinks it's up to them. I say this stuff about the truth community, where there's the InfoWar model from, the shill Alex Jones, that you think you're going to wake up all these sheeple and you're going to have an army of sheeple that are going to do something that you can't do. You're more alive and awake and aware than the sheeple. How are the sheeple going to do better than you? Why would waking up people, the masses of people who don't give a shit and are not curious and don't, they're just happy with, they're content with their miserable lives or whatever, and are not, they're not people that are they're not revolutionary, they're not visionary, they're not going to lead you. You expect the people that are too late to the party are going to somehow activate and do something you can't do already, right? It's silly. This whole idea is silly, right? And everything I'm saying isn't hard to see. It's hard to accept, right? People can see it, they just can't accept it. And they have to limit it to this group of people or that group of people or, whatever it is. But our people who are in front of us on a daily basis, whoever it is, right? The people who are in prominent positions are worse than the regular people, and the regular people suck, and we're getting worse generationally. That's the other thing. It'd be one thing if we were all scumbags, but we were getting better. If each generation was getting stronger and better and more intelligent and more whatever. Just even, if we were barbarians and we were the worst of the worst, but there was some level of sophistication and some level of advancement where we could see, oh, wow, people are getting fucking better, right? But whatever we were before, which probably wasn't all that great. I mean, we haven't been great for a while as a species. We're getting worse. We're definitely getting worse. And that's another big flaw. That's another red flag that, and getting worse in the sense of getting more unnatural, like animals in a zoo can't be what they were designed to be, right? Even in the best zoos. They can't live a more natural life as a lion or a chimpanzee or whatever. They're confined to a small area and, their food's provided for them, and so they're not being what they're designed to be. But in the wild, they are. They're being what they're supposed to be. And humans aren't that way, right? We're not that way at all. We're not being what we're designed to be, and we're just become more and more natural, and you can see it setting in. And so we have a system problem, and we have a human problem, and they go hand in hand. And it's leading us in the wrong direction. Pretty much everybody can see this, right? Like when you say idiocracy is a real thing, it's a real thing on so many different levels. And so if we're going in the wrong direction, we're de-evolving, we're getting weaker and worse, then the system has to go, like it just has to go. And it isn't something where it can be changed a little bit, because what you're fighting against is people's desire not to change and people's desire to go to the lowest level instead of the highest level. That's why there's so few saints, because people don't take an interest in their spiritual evolution, and people don't really want to improve. They want to have other people improve. They want their leaders to be better, but they don't want to change themselves. And changing is hard, especially now with everything that the world is pulling you towards your lowest nature, right? To be selfish and all these things. And you're like, well, why should I mean, when you change into a spiritual person, it's like everybody around you takes advantage of you because you're better, right? Like it's because they're all fucking sucky because they don't want to change. And so when you become a spiritual person, you just become like a target. Like you have, if you have energy and love to give, people will, like these vampires and ghouls, will take as much love out of you as they fucking can, right? Because that's, they don't have it. They're deprived of it, and they're not willing to work for it themselves. Divine energy, this transmission that comes from the Sajmark system. I mean, it's it's a divine, it's God's love that's available for everyone. But people don't want to put in the work to get it and don't feel like they deserve it, because deep down they know that they're pieces of shit that are going in the wrong direction. And so if you become a saint or higher developed soul, they're going to prey on you and steal everything from you. And so like it would behoove you not to be spiritual or not to be evolved, because then you just more and more pressure on you, right? And so there's no greatness now. Like people like talk about and being great is not, it's kind of the opposite of that. When you're a spiritual person, it's humility, but there's no higher now. It's everything's going to a lower direction, and it's across the board in the people of prominence. And so why would people think the system should be saved or could be saved? That's what I've been saying in my last few videos, right? Like it's all just, deprived and, it's all depravity and all these things. So my problem with all these people, and I don't say I have a problem with them, what I would criticize about all this stuff, and it's not really criticism, it's just, truth, is not one of them are saying what I'm saying here, that we're fucked in terms of the material system. Like, it's not that we're fucked, it's like it should go, it sucks. We're fucked from the standpoint is that, it's hard to change who you are on the inside, but it's also to change how your lifestyle is, to adapt to a new country, to adapt to a new, anything, right? Just even relationships. Like that's why, how much you have to change when you're in a relationship, and just how much you have to, adjust your life and, just a new kind of career or living in a different area. Like there's lots of just physical changes. But when the system is the same, when there's a strip mall with all the stores you like, and you have Amazon, you can just now, you don't even have to go out shopping. You have all these conveniences and running water. If you're going to move to a new place, the first things you have to figure out is where you're going to get your water from. Like if you're a homesteader or something. Okay, we're near a creek. We're near a creek. We're near a spring, right? We have this water source. And then how do you get the water? How do you harvest the water, or whatever you want to call it? And then there's things like food and the rest of it, right? How do we heat our food? Where are we going to get our firewood? Because there's places where there's no trees, right? So you have to just figure out your basic needs. But now that's provided for you by all the stores. There's these strip malls that are similar all across America, where all the places that people frequent, whatever they eat, food, whatever they do, whatever they shop at. There's a Costco and a fucking Walmart, and there's little shops in these, and whatever stuff people have in terms of fast foods or whatever it is, right? And it's very similar that you don't have to adjust yourself. You just have to figure out where the things you liked in your old place are in this new strip mall, and the strip malls are almost identical. So it's like you go into a store, like every once in a while you go into a reverse Walmart or a reverse Lowe's where the shit's on the opposite side of the other place, and and you're like, wow, this sucks. I mean, I usually know what aisle, I know how to look at the store, but now everything's in reverse, right? You come in and on the other side of the store, it's like a Costco. Every once in a while they have they have these opposite ones, but the people who are there, they're the opposite ones the way it's supposed to be because that's what they're used to. But anyways, what I'm talking about is having to adjust to a completely different lifestyle, where so much more is expected out of you, and so much less is provided by a system that doesn't exist anymore, and so that sucks, right? That part of the thing sucks. But every other aspect about it is good, right? And people should be at least hinting at this. They should be at least saying this is a possibility, like any of these people, and they're not. That you might need to prepare for this. You might have to adjust yourself, and this is what Pockets of Future stands for: living now the way people are going to have to live in the future. You have to build the pocket of the future, at least, partially. You don't have to quit your job and go off grid like that's, I mean, everyone has to figure out what it means for them. But what you need to start to develop and what you need to be able to do to have a life on the other side of this collapse. And the leadership is just not even, saying any of those things. They talk about how this thing might end at any moment, right? And they're saying all these things. But then they just fucking, they don't say, oh, well, like they try to sell you a sales pitch of preventing it because they know you'll do anything not to have this thing end. Or you'll buy anything and you'll buy into anything just so you can believe that the system won't end. That's how Trump has sold people. And Biden was trying to sell the same thing. That the other people are going to lead you to disaster, but I'll save you. Oh, you will? Good. I don't have to think of it anymore, I won't be needing this, taking your head and moving to the side. There's that Bob Gothwaite joke, the comedian, where he goes, oh, entertain him tonight, I won't be needing this, and he pretends to take his head and take it off his body, right? And so, that's where people are, and that's where the leadership is. Across the board, even most of the people in the truth community aren't saying, this is something you have to consider. Like, what does it mean to you? What do you think you're going to need if the system collapses? Like, just start thinking about those things. What kind of person are you going to have to be to survive this thing? Or are you just going to quit, curl up in the fetal position, and just say, it's too tough, which is what majority of people are going to do. And so, it's just you're talking to corpses, right? You're talking to dead people. You're talking to zombies and ghouls who are just, they're going to ride this thing out, and then they feel no responsibility to the next generation or humanity itself to do anything to adjust to their new circumstances. And so, like as I said, the majority of people are just dead man walking. Anyways, let's wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.